For section 6.5, number 72, we would like to totally factor, Okay, so I suppose they've already kind of grouped things for us, so maybe we should try to factor as much as we can in those. Okay, so what's this guy?
5x minus y squared.
Awesome. See the perfect square trinomial there? Cool. Okay, how about this other thing? That's, what can I get out of that?
2z.
Okay, I can get a 2z out. What am I left with? I'm going to pull a 2z. Oh, cool. And then I've got this minus 24z squared business. Okay. How awful. You see it?
Yeah.
What do you see?
You can't put the 5x minus y squared with the 2z 5x minus y.
Yeah, I can't combine those.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have factored the.
I gotta factor some more, right? How do I factor some more?
We did this for the
You guys see this?
We just separate the 5x minus y, right? Like the the square. You just put 5x minus y times 5x minus y.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think that'll.
Well, since your middle has a 5x minus y, won't that have to be one of the factors?
Yeah.
And then you just figure out times what.
So if I factor a 5x minus y out of, how many terms have a 5x minus y? Just 2, right? So I'm going to get a 5x minus y times the quantity 5x minus y plus 2z, right? Then I'm going to have this minus 24z squared thing on the end of that. I don't know what the heck to do with that, right? You guys see that? Uh-oh.
It's,
So,
shouldn't we be trying to factor the entire thing and ignore the parentheses?
yeah, I should try to factor the entire thing. So let me maybe just throw something really dumb in here. Let me just think about this piece as one object, right?
Okay.
I'm going to just kind of think, well, let me give that thing a name. Maybe we'll call it W. So then this thing is really W squared plus 2zw minus 24z squared.
I
Okay.
see that.
Now do I have a technique that I could try?
Wow, that looks quite better than
Yeah, this calling things by different names is actually a good strategy sometimes. Like if you have something that's kind of mathematically complicated to write down, it's often a good idea to give it a simpler name just so you can see what's happening. Because we've trained you guys to deal with simple things pretty well, but when things get complicated and scary like this 5x minus y, I don't really know what to do. So maybe I rename it something simple and see. You guys see a way to factor this?
It's W plus 6z and W minus 4z.
You see that? What did he use?
It's the perfect square.
Thing that you just used.
Yeah,
Well, not a.
it's not a perfect square trinomial,
Yeah.
but you're looking at doing the AC
And then
factoring
you end up
method.
with 5x minus y plus 6z and 5x minus y minus 4z.
Well, hang on. So let me go back to W land for a second. So in W land, this was, here, let me write up here. So this is an AC factor that he's running there. He's saying, all right, I need two things that multiply together to negative 24 and add up to positive 2, right? So that says they need to be
6 and negative
6 and negative 4. So I rewrite my 2, right, as plus 6 ZW minus 4 ZW minus 24 Z squared. Right, that's running the AC factor method. Then what? You guys remember how the AC factor method finishes off?
You combine the like terms, the z and the w.
Factor
Don't
first.
combine the like terms because that'll get me back to where I was. You want to factor some stuff out. So out of this guy, I can factor a
W.
W. So I'm left with a W plus
6z.
6Z there. And out of these guys, I can factor a
Z.
negative 4 and a Z. And I'll be left with a W
Minus 6.
Plus 6
plus 6Z. This should be the same. Then I factor the W plus 6Z out. And I'm left with a W minus 4Z times W plus 6Z.
That worked nicer than I thought it would.
Right? Another way to look is to look back at this guy and say, okay, I'm looking for two things that multiply to negative 24 and add to 2. That's 4 and 6. And then put negative signs in the appropriate places. The factor by grouping gets me the z's right. Or the AC method gets me the z's right. The other thing I have to kind of think about is the z in the right spot. Did it work? You guys cool with that? So in the end, I have fully factored as, not this though, right? Because they didn't ask me anything with w's in it. So what do I have to do?
Replace it with the 5x.
Okay, so this is really 5x minus y minus 4z times 5x minus y plus 6z.
And if you multiply that together, you get the original.
Yeah, and then you could check by the really nasty distribute that you'd have to do here.
If
Right.
you look at this.
But you
square
will get back to the beginning.
In the, there's a 25x, there's a square at the front and the middle and the end. So
Yeah,
if
you
it's
could
arranged
almost
that
eyeball
way-
this.
If it's arranged that way, then you can eyeball that.
You guys see this? You could really go back to the beginning here and eyeball the perfect square trinomial from the beginning.
Just ignore the parentheses.
You see that? That would be oh no, you can't. Never mind. That's okay.
There's
That's
y
not a
squared,
perfect
that
square
means you have two
trinomial.
minus y squares, you have a 25x squared, which means you have two 5x x's, and you have 24z, and so you need a 4 and a 6, or a 12 and a 2, but if you put them together, you would have
So-
realized that it didn't.
If you knew this factored into two terms, right, that each had an x, y, and a z in them, you could maybe eyeball the numbers.
Yeah.
But you have to know that it actually factors into two terms. For all I know, this was going to factor into 3 terms or 4 terms, or, well, it probably wasn't going to factor into 27 terms, right? But I could have maybe had some problems with factoring into more or less, or not factoring, right? It didn't have to factor.
I thought a perfect squared quadrant.
No, we're not. Cool? Good?